All right, back at the LT1 today. Gonna put the intake on. Don't you pee on that. Dog was about to pee on my. Brandon cleaned up my intake. Really good. Did a real good job for me. Appreciate that, Brandon. I don't think he watches the videos though. But anyway. We're gonna go ahead and try to use this Opti. Even though I tore the plug-in up, I'm gonna silicone it back down in there because this looks like an original. And whoever sealed it up, man, they sealed it up good. So put the water pump shaft on the intake. I'm gonna put that water pump shaft on there, or water pump shaft seal on there first. And there's a trick to do that. All right, so here's the water pump shaft seal. If you don't put this in right, it will leak. Well, this yellow part really don't matter, whatever color it is, tan, yellow. See this rubber part? See how it's bowed backwards? It's got to be bowed backwards, but it goes on like this. Problem is, when you go to put that on, it'll flip that rubber piece back. And when it flips that rubber piece back, it's going to leak. It's got to go on just like that. So the trick is, well, I used to have a Sharpie cap that would fit that just right. I remember using a socket doing this before, but you want something that's going to go over that and fit that and be almost level with the end of that to put this on. So this wasn't big enough, so I put some tape on it. But then we're just going to lube this up really good. Lube the seal up really good with some Vaseline. Then we're going to lube that shaft up really good. Alright. And then we're going to push this. We're going to push it through this side. Just like that. We pushed it through that side. Now we'll slide this on here. Then we're going to push the seal back. Nice and careful. Just grab it right here and just kind of twist and push back. I'm going to need two hands to make sure this doesn't come off. Well, I wound up having to make that bigger. I had to make it so big that it would barely fit through the hole. And it slid right on there that time. It's not all the way on, but I mean, it slid right on there. So it's definitely not flip forward. If it was, you'd be able to see it. So it's flipped the right way, and it'll stay that way once you slide it back on. So now we're just going to put a socket big enough to fit right over top of that and just lightly hammer it in place. But there's a Sharpie cap. I had one. It's a certain size Sharpie cap will fit that perfect. But I've lost mine apparently. But that right there, that's just a PVC pipe, 1/2 inch, and I just put some tape on it. And I made it big enough to where it would just fit through that hole with the tape. I lubed it up, and stuck it on there, and it slid right on there that time. First time it did want to slide on there, but it slid right on there that time. All right, and I took a socket that would just fit over that and onto the shiny part of the seal. I beat it all the way on there. Everything looks good. That's that tan piece that went around there. It's not going to matter none. That's just some kind of paper or something. But yeah, folded the way it should be. It's all good. I'm going to go ahead and put this Opti on. So I marked right here so I could see through the side where this one goes. I'm going to mark this one right here on the side also. It's that big square one that it goes into. You got to line that up. That big square one with that pin right there. Now, if you've got an old seal, and this is the reason why I stuck that Opti on there and just left it on there just to I don't even know if it was lined up or not. I was just trying to get the seal to bow in. If you got an old seal, this is easy to do like this. But now, If you got the new seal, it's not that easy because it's hard to press past that new seal and line it up at the same time, but we're going to try to stab it on there. So I looked through there. Let me turn the light on. And lined up my marks. Now it's hard to see. Where'd we go? But anyway, I can see the marks in there just barely. And there we go, I pulled it out. So there's my mark there. There's my mark there. And just line it up and push it on. I'm going to put it on wrong first. Stand corrected, I put it on right. I'm going to mess it up though, just to show y'all. So when you push it on there, it is kind of tight on them new seals. Now if it's an old seal, you can usually push it really easy and line it up easy, and you'll know. Now if all these set flat right here, if you're flat on all those, and over here, if they're all nice and flat, you've lined it up and it's on there. Now I'm going to unalign it and show you something. Now I flipped it around and I did line up the bolts in the holes, and that pin should be sticking out further. That pin ain't sticking out as far as it should be, but you'll see I'm not flat. It is lined up with the bolt holes in them circles on the back of the Opti, but now the pin's hitting where it shouldn't be hitting, and you'll see I'm not flat anymore on the thing, which the pin, you'll see, and it wobbles too. The pin on this one should be pulled out a little bit further, but as long as it engages it, it's fine. Now I'm gonna put it back on right. I just wanted y'all to see that. And like I said, it'll stick out further, and it'll stick out further if the pin was sticking out as far as it should be. That pin should be sticking out further. See, now it's on like it should be. And you'll notice there's not a bunch of that wobble. I mean, there's a little bit, but nothing like it was before. So now another way you can do this is you can take this cap off. Now, these are the, I don't know, I'm gonna call them inverted Torx heads, but it's hard to find the bits for those. But the throttle body, these throttle body screws, they're the same size. They're this the other way. And you can take these out and you can use those as a wrench to take them other bolts out. And I'm gonna do that just because I want to check the rotor movement to make sure that pin's sticking out far enough that it ain't moving, but I'm pretty sure they've glued that cap on there. So this is the bolt out of the throttle body. It's even got a little hex head on it that you can put a socket on. And you just put that right there. Fits perfect. So if you ever in a pinch don't have the tool, there you go. I usually just put a pair of vice grips on there, but you can put a socket on it. Let's see if we can find a socket that'll fit it. Yeah, so I don't even have any sockets that small. So I usually just put a pair of vice grips on the end of it. As long as you don't get on the threads, it'll be just fine. And there you go. Took the bolt right out of it. It's good to take the cap and rotor apart anyway. Check the cap and rotor for wear, and then make sure there's no oil and coolant in there, which his seal was leaking. So I'm pretty sure when it leaks, I mean, it goes right down in there. But looks pretty clean up there, but the bolt's got a bunch of oil on it, so let's see if we can't get it off. Hopefully, a lot of people, they'll silicone these shut, but he's glued that in there. Whoever did this before, somebody's been in this motor before. They glued that down in there, which the tab was broke. Maybe that's why they glued it. I don't know, but it's glued down in there. It's stuck. And I pulled on it a little bit. I don't think I broke anything. I think it'd be fine like that, but let's take these other four off and see if this will come off the cap. All right, just like that. There's a bolt hole there, a bolt hole there. Oh, that bolt stayed in there. A bolt hole there and a bolt hole there, and this comes off. And the cap don't look too bad. Rotor don't look too bad either. Now, to get inside here, you have to take the rotor off. And look at there, the rotor is nice and not tight. I did tighten up these bolts. So I don't think that pin's sticking out far enough. Look at that. It's got way too much movement. You know, I'm glad I took that cap off and checked that, because I knew that pin was a little too short to begin with. But luckily, that one wasn't too hard to get out. So what I did was I took a pair of vice grips, and I could barely get it in there without hitting the seal. Took a pair of vice grips, I clamped it on there as tight as I could. Took another pair, clamped it on here, and I took this hammer. Boom, 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 boom. Out it came. Now I think I'm too far, which that's not a problem. I can beat it back in. Let's see what we got. Again, we're lining that big square one up. See, it was, the bolts were actually going down in here, but see where this is beveled? It wasn't going up in there enough. It was still moving. Oh, we need to take the shaft play on this too. Got a little bit of shaft play. But now let's stick it up in there, because that hole goes quite a bit up in there, but I think we're too far out now. Let's check. Again, that hole right there, not those two, lined up with that. And it's easier to do it with the cap off. That way you can just put it up on there and kind of spin this around till it goes in the, spin this around and push till it goes in the hole. Well, I put it on there, and it went on there, and it went all the way on. But I did tap it in just a little bit, try to make it about the same as the other one. So now that the pin's in the right spot, I'll show you what it looks like when it's on wrong. Now that pin's up in a bolt hole where the bolt's supposed to go. And see how much it moves when it's in a bolt hole. That's how much it was moving before, because the pin wasn't engaging, but now the pin's hitting deep in the bolt hole. So if, now look how much space we got there. I mean, you can wiggle it. See, there's a big gap there. There'll be a big gap here. See, that's wrong. If you ever put one of these on and it's not setting up there flush, and you even saw, even with the pin backed out, way out, that hole goes way up in there. It went flush. I'd beat it in a little bit, but yeah, if you stick this thing up on there and it don't go up on there flush, right here, you're not on there. And what a lot of people do is they'll bolt it down, and if you bolt it down, it'll pull it flush. But that ain't the right. That's not going to be right. The car's not going to start. So I already know where it goes. Let's put it back on right. And again, see right there, the bolt was up in that pin right there was up in a bolt hole. And these are the bolt holes. Now it won't go in these ones. It won't fit in those. And it does that for a reason. So if you're sticking that far out, you're up in a bolt hole. Now I'll show you when it's right. Now when you're up in there right, this will have some movement, but it don't have very much movement at all. And you will be flat up against all of these, every one of them. Just pushing it on. Like I said, if you've got a brand new seal, it is kind of hard to push them on. But yeah, it'll go up flat against those just by pushing it. And it is easier, like I said, to do it with the cap off. That way, because I actually had to push it and then try to turn this, and it wouldn't hardly turn, and I had to pull it out a little bit, turn it a little bit more, push it. And if you get it to push in, you got the gaps, and this is moving a whole bunch like it did a while ago, you're in a bolt hole. So pull it out, turn it a little bit more until it should slide on. And when it slides on, I mean you shouldn't have to push this real hard. I mean, it takes a little bit of pressure, but just to get past the seal, but you shouldn't have to push, or, you know, it shouldn't take a lot of force. And then, yeah, it should be nice and flat. And if you got a whole bunch of movement like we had before, that pin's in a bolt hole. But that's it. Let's put the 3 bolts in it, and then we'll put the cap back on. Call that good. Oh, so usually those pins are not that easy to pull out. So I got lucky there. But all's good. So I'm going to take this the rest of the way apart, just because I'm curious if it's got a Mitsubishi sensor in it. And I want to make sure it's clean down inside that part also. So take this the rest of the way apart. Take these 2 torque head bolts out. And this will come off, and then you can take this off. Well, I take that back. Also, make sure these discs right here, make sure you don't knock those out of there. They rest on that pin. There's 2 or 3 of them in there, I forget. But don't get those out of order, and make sure they go back on the way they came off. Which they've got pin holes and bolt holes. But yeah, I can't get that off because I can't get that out. That's got to come out because it plugs into the optical sensor. And this is all one piece. All this whole thickness right here, that's all one piece. But anyway, it's good to take the rotor out anyway and Loctite the screws, because I've seen them screws come loose. And this one was actually loose. This one was tight still, but this one was just a hair coming out. So we'll go ahead and Loctite those and put it back together. Also, you can't put this in wrong. It's got this pin right there. I only go on one way, and that pin goes right there. So you can't mess that up. But yeah, just notice which way that hole is right there and where the pin is in reference to that hole. So it goes on just like that. Well, let's put this back on. Like right there. And then we'll making sure not to knock them discs loose. And then we'll Loctite the screws and put that back on, put the cap back on. Then we'll move up here to the intake. He was supposed to bring me over some paint to paint the block. I guess I'll have to go get some. I mean, that's what I was waiting on, paint. He said, no, we got paint. That's what he brought me. There's no paint in there. It's oil and antifreeze and a filter. Yeah, oil, antifreeze, a filter, and spark plugs. There's no paint. I don't know. All Loctited in, screwed back in. Be real careful on these. They're really easy to strip out, so you don't want to get them super tight. I barely even turned them, honestly. I just snugged them up just a little with the ratchet. But I mean, I just barely snugged them because I've stripped those out a couple of times. So just Loctite them and snug them up a little bit. I don't know what the torque is on those. I'm sure there's a spec, but yeah, throw the cap on. All right, there we go. Tighten those up in a crisscross pattern. Snug that one, snug that one, snug that one, snug that one, then went back and tightened them the rest of the way up, about as tight as I could get them with a screwdriver. It's about as tight as I got those. So let's go ahead and throw the intake on there. And one thing about the LT1 Gen 2 versus the Gen 1 small block Chevy is there's no water passages in the heads. So on a small block Chevy, these just dead end. The ones in the front, they go up to the thermostat housing. Like ones in the back dead end to the intake, which is a really bad idea on a small block Chevy. On Christopher's car, we got the intake that has the ports for those and ran it up to the thermostat housing. So now usually these will have these little plastic pins that stick in there. It holds gasket in place. Well, this one don't have any, so I'm going to use some RTV on the back side and put the intake up there, kind of hold it, let that dry to hold it in place. And while that's drying, I just put a dab of RTV there, dab of RTV there, and a dab of RTV there on the other side, just so it sticks. And they're sticking. Them gaskets don't line up the best, but try to line up your dowel pin holes and your bolt holes and the runners the best you can. We'll let that set up a little bit. I'm gonna go ahead and put the oil filter on here and pour oil down inside here. I'm gonna prime it just by cranking the motor over with the injectors and the coil unhooked. The coil will be right here. I'm gonna go ahead and pour some oil down in there, put the oil filter on, pour some oil in it. Oh, and I'm gonna fill the oil filter full of oil too. When you fill up your oil filter, pour some in, let it bubble down, let it set. Pour some in, let it bubble down, let it set until you get it close to full. And then make absolutely sure you oil your rubber ring right here. The rubber ring needs oil on it when you screw it on there. Let's knock it off there. Well, I'm not even videoing them. There we go. Yep, and then we'll finish filling that up. Alright, pretty much full. Takes a few minutes, fill it up, let it go down, fill it up, let it go down, fill it up, let it go down. Put oil on your ring like I said before. Make sure your surface is clean on your block. And when you put this on, put it on there hand tight. Don't use a tool to tighten it, put it on there hand tight. Alright, the oil filter's on there. Again, just hand tight. Make sure that plugs in there because it will squirt oil out that one. It'll squirt oil out there and it'll squirt oil out there. And the rest I just poured right down in the lifter valley. It'll drop down on the cam, drop down on the crank, lube those up. Now on the intake, we're going to put a bead. Sometimes they'll give you gaskets for these. Don't use them, they leak. If you do use them, put RTV in the corners, but I just use the RTV. I'm going to put a bead across through there. A good little bead, because you're going to have a gap about that far, so you want to, you know, put a gap bigger than that. A thickness bigger than that with the RTV. So we'll put RTV on the front and back. And there we go. A good steady bead across the front and the back. I might have got a little carried away, but better than too much and not enough. Now we'll go ahead and drop the intake on there. Carefully. Trying to drop it on as straight as we can. Now I did get a little too carried away, but what I'm going to do, and you know, make sure it's all across through there, especially in those corners, is what I do is I go ahead and put the bolts in and I snug them up, and then I just snug them up by finger, and then I let that RTV dry before I tighten it down. And I'm gonna let that, I'm not gonna wipe that RTV off. I'm gonna leave it like that. I want it to stay as one full piece, so whatever squirted out on the back don't come loose on me and fall down in the oil. You don't want that. But yeah. All right, there we go. Tighten up the bolts in a crisscross pattern. Just barely tighten them. So I went here, 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 and then, oh, forgot one. Here, 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 and here. There's 8. 12 total, not bad. But yeah. Now we'll let that RTV set to where you can tap on it. It's not tacky. Kind of dry, about 30 minutes to an hour. And then we'll torque it down. Now normally I don't even torque these, but I'm going to this time. Just because it's not my motor. And I'm going to do it the right way. So the torque The sequence is the crisscross pattern. Here, 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 here. Here, 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 here. And then here, 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 there. Just follow a pattern somewhat like that. You'll be fine. But now I've heard of people say, oh, I broke my bolt. Doing it by the specs. The specs say 71 inch-pounds the first pass, and then 35 foot-pounds the second pass. So I think a lot of people are confusing that inch-pounds with foot-pounds and trying to do 71 on their intake bolts. So don't do that. I don't even do the inch-pounds. I'm going to do 20 foot-pounds first pass, and I'm going to do 35 foot-pounds the second pass. Call it good. But yeah, don't let this RTV dry to where it's like a rubber, and it's almost there. I got way too much there, but oh well. Like I said, I'm not going to start smearing that, because if you do, you're liable to make a hole in there. Put too much on it, just leave it like that. Because if I start smearing that out of there and it comes out of that between the intake and the block there, you just messed up. You got to start all over. So I'm just going to leave it like that. Oh well, I did too much. So now y'all know about how much. See how that's still a little tacky. It's almost rubbery. But once it gets tacky, and then I'll torque it down. It takes 30 minutes to an hour. And this way, it's cold out. It's like 50 degrees. I hate cold weather. But in this cold weather, it will take about an hour. So I'm going to clean up the throttle body gasket a little bit. I can clean up the valve pan covers a little bit too. Go spray those with oven spray. Get those ready to go on. So I'm going to do that. Taped it up, tossed a coat of paint on it while I'm cleaning this gasket off that don't want to come off. Alright, I screwed the PCV valve thing in there, and I just set it over there. I've got to get a grommet for the valve itself. On the I forgot where it goes on the older models, but on the newer LT1s, it comes to the front of the intake. And it goes up there to a grommet and that big hole, and that's the valve itself, and it goes in that hole. But yeah, put the throttle body gasket on, you put it on dry. It only goes on one way. You'll see how it goes when you're lining it up. Put your 4 bolts in there again, tighten them, catty corner. Now I'm going to put the water pump on. When you put the water pump on, do not forget your water pump drive cell. Here's the water pump gaskets. They go on just like that, the big hole towards the bottom. So that one will go right there, and that one will go right there. And I do put RTV on both sides of these. Put my water pump drive coupler on, whatever you call that thing. Now, I don't think it matters which way you put this on, but this side looks deeper, so I'm gonna put that side this way. There is a certain way it's supposed to go on, but like I said, it don't matter. It'll work either way. So go ahead and put that on. RTV this up. The gaskets, I'm just gonna RTV the gasket itself, and I'm gonna stick both of those on there. Clean the water pump on. Toss it on. Clean the water pump up real good. Go ahead and put my gaskets on. Now it has these dowel pins that lines the water pump up. It lines up with those holes right there on each side. Now sometimes it won't go on because that gear won't be lined up with that coupler. So sometimes you gotta pull it back off, spin it a little, and push it back on. So I'm gonna go ahead and push that on. And these water pump bolts, they go down into water jackets, so put some RTV on the threads, or some kind of thread sealant or something. And water pump's on. Now I'm gonna put the hub on. Now this hub, people say, does it matter which way it goes on? No, actually, it will only go on one way. It kind of looks like those 3 bolts are spaced out evenly, but they're not. So the hub will only go on one way. It'll only line up in them holes one way. Put the motor mounts on it. Now this one has the ground wire. It goes to the battery. It goes right there. And the power wire and ground wire together, that one goes to the starter. That's the power wire. And it all comes up here. And then battery, and then those go to those ground blocks on the firewall. And put the plugs back in it, and then transfer these spark plug wires over to this motor. And on these spark plugs, I don't know if you can tell or not, but it'll focus there. Yeah. See that bevel right there? That means it uses this type of spark plug, the one with the bevel on it. See, I can't think of the name for some reason, but now if that's completely flat, then it would use a spark plug with a washer on it. Little washer on it. I'm gonna go ahead and put all the plugs in, and then transfer the wires from that one over to this one. So you'll hear some people say, how do you time these things? I'm putting the plug wires on. Well, that pin holds that rotor. That pin that I had to pull out of the camshaft, it holds the rotor in a certain spot. And then the optical sensor reads that disc that I told you about that's behind that rotor, and that's what times it. So that's why this is able to spin on the crank, and that doesn't matter. It's not like a small block Chevy where you have to time it off a timing mark, off the balancer. And then these right here, they're marked. I don't know if you can see it with the sun glare. Yeah. Oh, the glare of the sun's killing us. But anyway, they're marked. Probably have to clean it off a little bit better. See, there's 4. There's 6. There's 8. So this has to be 2. I can't get my hand in there and clean it. But anyway, this side of the motor is 2, 4, 6, 8 on back. So you make sure that you line it to the one where it's marked. But yeah, that's how you do that. And this side's the same way. Maybe we can see this side better. Can y'all see it? I got so much glare. Yeah. And then this side's from front to back. 1, 3, 5, 7. You just got to make sure. So this is 2, so this will go to 2 on here, which is the bottom one. That one's 4, so that'll go to 4 on here. Which one was it? The top? Yeah. And so on and so forth. There we go. I put the blanket over the motor. 4, 6, 8, 2. And just for reference, this one's 5, 3, 7, 1. So I got 3 running over to 3 and 1. Zoom out. Whoa. And then 1 running down to 1. So we got 5 and 7 to go. Alright, I got all the plug wires and plugs on. And then these tuck up right in between here when that bracket goes on. There's a space right there that those will go in. And but anyway, I'm gonna call it there for today. He's got them cheap head gaskets, header gaskets. I'm not putting those on there. We'll get what gasket to use on these cars. The Percy triple layer. head gaskets. That's the best ones. I've used the Felpro ones. I've used everything. Those Percy triple layer gaskets are by far the best ones. So we're going to go get some of those. For our steam pipe for the banjo bolts, you need some of these washers. So I need to go get 4 of those. And then I need the PVC grommet. But yeah, so the next video will be putting the injectors in, putting the wiring harness back on, putting the headers on, putting the starters on, and putting it back in the car. Y'all like and subscribe and have a great day.